It is funny how life throws you back into the arms of the very person you swore you would never see again. I never thought I would run into him in this small town, let alone find myself staring at him through the lens of his own camera. Fate, it seemed, was either drunk or cruel. Ethan Monroe. The name alone still carried the sting of high school hallways, the sharp taste of humiliation, the burning rivalry of two boys who could never stand each other. He was the golden boy, the athlete who looked like he had been kissed by the sun itself. And me? I was the quiet one, the boy who scribbled poetry on the back of notebooks and survived high school by avoiding eye contact. We hated each other with a passion so strong. Sometimes I wondered if it was hate at all. But now, years later, Ethan was standing in front of me with that same careless smirk, except softer, matured. He was no longer the boy who shoved me into lockers or laughed when I stumbled over my words. He was a man holding a camera, his gaze steady as if he could see straight through me. "Hold still," he said, his voice lower, rougher, richer than I remembered. And just like that, I hated how my chest tightened, how my body betrayed me by leaning into the moment instead of away from it. The story began 2 weeks ago when I returned to Maplewood, the town I swore I'd escape forever. Life had dragged me back, with my mother's health declining and the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. I thought I could quietly slip in, take care of things, and slip out again without disturbing the ghosts of my past. But of course, Maplewood had other plans. The first time I saw Ethan again was at the town's art gallery. I went there to escape the suffocating silence of my childhood home, hoping to drown myself in colors and canvas. Instead, I found myself staring at a black and white photograph that felt too raw, too painfully familiar. It was of Maplewood High's old football field, captured in the middle of winter, empty and cold. And right there beside the frame was Ethan, adjusting the display light, as if he had been placed there by some cruel twist of destiny. "You're still here?" I asked, the words slipping out colder than I intended. He looked at me, startled at first, then something like recognition lit up his face. "Daniel." That was my name, his voice wrapping around it with an intimacy I didn't ask for. I should have walked away. I should have turned on my heel and left before the air got heavier, before the past clawed its way back into my chest. But I didn't. I stood there, staring at him, realizing how much he had changed and how much he hadn't. Over the next few days, we kept crossing paths. Small towns have a cruel way of forcing you into collisions you're not ready for. At the grocery store, at the coffee shop, at the park where my mother used to take me as a child. And each time, it was as if the universe was laughing, throwing me into his orbit again and again until resistance became exhausting. One evening, when the sky turned purple with dusk, he caught me sitting alone on the swings. "You still hide out here when things get heavy?" he asked, his tone gentle but teasing. I didn't answer, but I didn't leave either. Instead, he sat down on the swing next to mine, the chains squeaking softly as his weight settled. We didn't speak for a long time, and yet the silence didn't feel as suffocating as it once did. It felt dangerous, like standing at the edge of something I didn't dare name. Finally, he broke it. "I was an ass in high school. I know that." I laughed bitterly. "That's putting it lightly." He looked at me then, and his eyes were nothing like I remembered. There was no mockery, no sharp edges, just sincerity and maybe a shadow of regret. "I wish I could take it back," he said. "The things I said, the way I treated you. I was a stupid kid who didn't know how to deal with feelings." Feelings. The word hung in the air like an open wound, bleeding into the silence between us. I didn't ask what he meant. I was too afraid of the answer. The next week, he asked me if I would let him photograph me. At first, I refused. The thought of being under his gaze, of letting him capture me in a way no one else ever had, was terrifying. But something in the way he asked, hesitant, almost vulnerable, made me pause. "It's not about the photo," he said. "It's about seeing you, the real you, not the version I thought I knew." And damn it, something in me cracked. So I agreed. The day of the shoot, we drove out to the old railroad tracks at the edge of town. The sun was setting, casting everything in a golden glow, the kind of light that made even broken things look beautiful. Ethan set up his camera while I stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do with my hands, my face, my entire body. "Just be yourself," he said softly. But being myself in front of him felt impossible, because every time his eyes lingered on me, it felt like he was stripping away the years of armor I had built, leaving me raw and exposed. At one point, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. The touch was brief, but it sent a shockwave through me. My heart stuttered, my breath caught, and suddenly, the air between us wasn't just heavy, it was electric. "You're different," he murmured, almost to himself. "No," I said quietly, my voice trembling. "You're just finally looking." And that was the moment I knew I was in trouble. I told myself I could keep my distance, that whatever this thing was between us would burn out if I starved it of attention. But feelings don't die quietly. They scream, they claw, they break down walls you've spent years building. And Ethan had a way of making me forget why I hated him in the first place. One night, after a particularly rough day at the hospital with my mom, I found myself outside his studio. I don't even remember walking there. My body just carried me like it knew where I needed to be before my mind could catch up. He opened the door, surprise flashing across his face before it softened into something I couldn't name. Without a word, he stepped aside and let me in. The studio smelled like paint, old wood, and faintly of him clean soap and cedar. Photos covered the walls. Strangers, landscapes, fragments of life frozen in time. And yet, I felt like I didn't belong in any of them. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. That was all it took. The dam broke. I told him everything. The fear of losing my mom. The exhaustion of carrying responsibilities alone. The suffocating weight of returning to a place that held so much pain. He listened, every word absorbed like it mattered, like I mattered. At some point, I realized his hand was resting on mine. Not forcefully, not even intentionally, just there like an anchor. "You don't have to go through this alone," he whispered. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe him. But nothing in Maplewood ever stayed soft for long. Rumors started spreading. Small towns thrive on gossip, and two grown men spending time together was fuel for a fire that never really died. I overheard whispers at the diner, at the pharmacy. Old classmates snickered, their laughter dripping with the same cruelty I remembered from the hallways of high school. One afternoon, I caught Ethan in the middle of an argument with his father outside the hardware store. His father's voice was harsh, sharp enough to slice through the humid air. "You're embarrassing yourself, son. Embarrassing this family." Ethan stood his ground, but I saw the flicker of pain in his eyes. He noticed me watching from across the street, and for the first time he looked small like the boy I remembered, trying to puff himself up against a world that didn't understand him. Later that night, I told him maybe we should stop. That it wasn't worth the fights, the whispers, the reminders of everything we'd tried to leave behind. He stared at me like I had just ripped the ground out from under him. "So that's it?" he asked, his voice breaking. "You'd rather run again?" The truth was, yes. Running had always been easier. But looking at him, I realized I didn't want easy anymore. I wanted him, even if it meant walking through fire. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. His lips curved into the saddest, most hopeful smile. "Then we'll figure it out. Together." The climax came on a stormy night, thunder shaking the windows of my childhood home. My mom had taken a turn for the worse, and I sat by her bed, holding her frail hand, feeling utterly helpless. She opened her eyes, weak but steady, and whispered, "Daniel, don't waste your life being afraid to love." Those words gutted me. When she finally drifted back to sleep, I stepped outside, the rain soaking me instantly. My feet carried me to Ethan's studio again, but this time, I wasn't there to break down. I was there to choose. He opened the door, shock written all over his face when he saw me drenched to the bone. Before he could say a word, I grabbed his shirt, pulled him close, and kissed him. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't careful. It was desperate, messy years of anger and longing colliding in a single, breathless moment. When we finally pulled apart, both of us gasping, I whispered, "I don't hate you. I never did. I just didn't know what else to call it." His forehead rested against mine, his voice trembling. "I was so scared back then, scared of what I felt, scared of you. And now?" I asked. "Now?" His hand cupped my cheek, warm even against the cold rain dripping from my hair. "Now I'm scared of losing you." The weeks that followed weren't perfect. People still whispered. His father still disapproved. My mom's health was still fragile. But amid all the chaos, there was usmacy, complicated, terrifying, and beautiful. Ethan kept photographing me, capturing moments I didn't even realize were worth keeping. The way my eyes softened when I looked at my mom, the way my smile cracked open when he made me laugh, the quiet strength I never thought I had. One evening, he showed me a photo he'd taken without me noticing. It was me standing on the old railroad tracks, sunlight wrapping around me like an embrace. "This," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "this is how I see you." And for the first time, I saw myself through his eyes. Not broken, not weak, just loved. Months later, at the opening of his new gallery, I stood beside him, my hand quietly brushing against his. The room buzzed with conversation, but all I could hear was the steady rhythm of his breath next to me. People paused at one particular photograph. Two men standing close, golden light spilling across their faces, their hands barely touching but their connection undeniable. It was us, vulnerable, imperfect, but real. Some looked disapproving, others looked moved, but none of that mattered. What mattered was Ethan's hand finding mine fully this time, fingers intertwining without hesitation. For years, I thought Maplewood was a place of pain, a graveyard of who I used to be. But standing there with him, I realized it had become something else, a place of second chances, a place where hate had been nothing more than a mask for love. And as he leaned in, whispering against my ear, "We made it," I knew he was right. We had, together. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.